So as we saw the other day, one of the Blood Angel detachments, the Liberator Assault Group, still brings you the Red Thirst detachment rule, netting you a bonus attack and 2 strength on the charge. But on top of that, of course, there is the usual selection of stratagems to go along with the detachment, and a few of those are quite interesting in that they grant you some really powerful buffs, but you can make them even more powerful by choosing to give in to the red thirst and get yourself a little bit of a detriment to kind of go alongside with that improved bonus. And so that detriment is that you make your unit battle shocked, so you lose your ability to essentially claim objectives, and of course you can't be affected by any other stratagems aside from the one you are actually currently using, of course. But then in return, some of these strats do look like they can make your units really quite killy. And GW give us a couple of examples of these today. They give us Red Rampage, which is 1 CP, and it lets you pick a unit in the fight phase, and you give that unit either lance or lethal hits. So this can really help you punch up into tougher enemies with those auto wounds, or maybe drop down from 3s to 2s to wound against things like other marines. So they are a good choice of bonuses, but if you choose to embrace the Red Thirst, your unit, as mentioned, gets battle shocked, but then they gain both lance and lethal hits. So you can turn that one big unit of jump pack intercessors or sanguinary guard or death company into just absolute blenders for a turn, albeit at the cost of perhaps not being able to steal an objective from an opponent. So I think personally this is a really nice little trade-off set of stratagems and really does have a lot of play and usefulness attached to it. The other one we get shown today is Savage Echoes. This is again 1 CP, and again you get a choice. You can either boost your strength or your attacks by 1 on a turn in which an opponent has charged you. So if you don't get off your detachment rule, you can still get a tiny part of it as compensation. But again, if you choose to give in to the Red Thirst, you get both of those boosted. So you get +1 strength and +1 attack. So you can really surprise an enemy that thought by charging into you, they would deny you your detachment rule and would make it a bit easier for them to survive your attacks back. Whereas you will do this stratagem and you will get not quite the same effect because it's only +1 attack and +1 strength rather than +2 strength, but you will get a nice little bonus to your output to a unit that is charging into you. If, however, you want to go for a more Death Company themed list, then the Lost Brethren detachment may be the better pick for you. This gives you the detachment rule of a noble death in combat, which makes your Death Company models reroll wound rolls of 1 with melee attacks if they are below starting strength, or full rerolls to wounds if they are below half strength. Now, this is a good damage output boost, but personally, I kind of think it should just always be reroll wound rolls of 1 and then keeping the full rerolls when you're below half strength. I don't think having to wait for some of your models to get killed to actually get any benefit from a detachment rule is very good. So I think it's an okay detachment. It can just be a little bit annoying to get it going because some of your stuff has to die first. You do, on top of that, also get Battle Line on your Death Company Marines in this detachment too, which is a nice bonus to help them play that little bit more effectively in the current season's rules. So this isn't a huge thing, but it is a nice little quality of life addition that I'm glad GW remembered to include. The detachment also gets a few stratagems itself, of course, with Lost to Rage giving you a huge boost in the fight phase. You pick a Death Company unit that is below starting strength, so it's already going to be rerolling wound rolls of 1 thanks to your detachment rule, and then they also get +1 to their strength, their attacks, and their AP of their melee weapons. Now, they do also get the hazardous rule unless they're near a chaplain, and that is basically to show that they've just gone wild and crazy and insane and are hacking anything around them to pieces. So it's a really nice strong buff. It could potentially give you a bucket load of solid, strong, good AP attacks and then some rerolls as well to help push them through. It's just got a really nice thematic downside as well, which isn't really going to be a huge downside much of the time because you are almost always going to have a chaplain near them anyway, because again, that's super thematic. and it is just another nice boost for a lot of your Death Company units. Final Retribution is another detachment stratagem, again is 1 CP, and again it's in the fight phase. However, this is after an enemy unit has selected its targets. And if one of the targets was a Death Company unit in your army, then whenever a model in that unit is killed by enemy attacks, you can roll a d6, and on a 4+, they can fight before you remove the model. And you get to add 1 to this roll if you are within 12 inches of a chaplain. So again, more buffs and benefits for being near a chaplain, but getting what is essentially a 3+ to fight on death for a unit of Death Company Marines does make them really quite scary to fight into, because your opponent may well be taking more damage in return than what they are dishing out. So it is another very strong, very cool, very thematic stratagem for your Death Company. We also got told about the jump pack themed Angelic Host Detachment the other day. This brings the rule upon Wings of Fire, and what this does is it lets you pick a number of jump pack units depending on the battle size, and then at the end of the opponent's turn, so you get to choose 2 in a strike force, 3 in an onslaught for example, they can be picked up and put into strategic reserves and then brought back onto the board in your following movement phase via deep strike. Now, you can't pick units in engagement range, so you can't just yeet a unit out of combat, but this gives you a huge amount of mobility for getting some of your units around the board, onto objectives, or closer to an enemy that you may want to try and charge. So it is a very, very good mobility detachment, and if you are running heavy on jump pack units, it could well be worth considering. You can make it even more scary with the stratagem they show off for it, which is Descent of Angels. This is again 1 CP, and it lets you in your movement phase, when you bring a unit on with Deep Strike, drop them 3 inches from enemies instead of 9 inches. Now it does say you can't charge, because that would just be broken, but you can now much more easily get around enemy screens, or steal objectives more effectively, or maybe get in range for a few cheeky melter shots. Something like Dante with 6 Sanguinary Guard should, in theory, unless things change in terms of their loadout, be able to drop around 3 melter pistol shots with this into a nearby tank. And whilst that may not be enough to outright kill a vehicle, you could very well chip the last few wounds off a damaged one. So it is overall just a really good stratagem for getting the absolute most out of your fast moving jump pack army and really putting that pressure hard onto the enemy right from the very start of the game. The final thing we get shown in the article today is an enhancement, the Gleaming Pinions. This is on a jump pack model only, and it gives you the option once per turn to make a 6-inch move after an enemy unit has ended a normal, advance, or fallback move within 9 inches of the bearer. So you can either move up and try to lock down an enemy unit, or screen one of your squishier units with the bearer and his unit, or if you are anticipating a charge, just fall back 6 inches and potentially make the enemy's charge that much harder, if not downright impossible. If the enemy moves up and gets to 7 inches away from you, you could move back that full 6 inches, put yourselves 13 inches away from the enemy, meaning that their charge isn't possible. So it is a very strong offensive or defensive enhancement, I think, and I do think it's going to be a popular one just for getting a character and their unit around even more quickly, or onto objectives when the enemy isn't expecting it, or just making it that much more difficult for the enemy to charge you, so you are free to countercharge in your subsequent turn. All in all, I think the Blood Angels are looking really solid from these rules. The detachments look fun and thematic and reasonably strong. The strats look really cool, and I do kind of like that they have this riskier push it version like we saw on some of the Orc ones back in their Codex. So I am really quite hyped for the Sons of Sanguinius, and I'm really excited to see just what they can do when they hit the battlefield. But as always, what do you make of these rules, and which of the detachments that we've seen is your favourite so far? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and as always, thank you very much for watching. Please do like and subscribe for more Warhammer content from me, but until next time, I'll catch you later, guys.